Julia Tuttle over here, guys, and you know, you wanted some ghostly stuff. Julia passed away in September of 1898, but she's come back. Julia, you want to say something to this group?
Oh, I sure do. Well, first of all, can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I was only in Miami for less than 8 years. I know many people think that I was here a long time. I'm often referred to as the mother of Miami, which pleases me greatly. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and my husband and my 2 children were there, but my father came down with William Brickell in 1870, and I came down to visit 3 times with my family. I even came down by myself with another lady friend, and boy, that got the people talking, because women just didn't do that then. They didn't travel without their husbands. Then, my husband came from a good family and had an ironworks. We got a lovely 5-story home right on Fairmont Avenue, which was the place to live in Cleveland. Well, it's often said that when my husband passed away, I got the money to come down here, which was where my heart was. But that is absolutely not true. When my husband passed away, how can I say this delicately? I was in severe financial straits. I found out that my handsome Frederick was not a good money manager. I even had to write to Henry Flagler to see if I could come to work for him. Well, that didn't work out, so do you know what I had to do? I had to take my beautiful home and turn it into a boarding house for young ladies and a tea room for young ladies. But when my father did pass away, I sold his property and came down on a barge with chickens and cows and my 2 adult children and bought the best piece of property in Miami, right at the mouth of Miami River, looking out over Biscayne Bay, and bought the old English home, fixed it up, put flowers, just made it a real show place. Well, I knew that Miami could not be what it should be without transportation. So I was very tenacious. I was relentless with Henry Flagler to get him to bring his railroad down here from West Palm. He wouldn't listen to me, truthfully. But then there was a terrible freeze throughout Florida except for the very southern tip. And that's when I sent the orange blossoms up to him, and he was ready to talk business at that time. So we made a deal. Now, he was a businessman, so this just wasn't being benevolent on his part. I agreed to give him half of my property, and the Brickells would give him half of theirs in exchange for him bringing the railroad down here, building the Royal Palm Hotel, and platting out the streets. Well, I was also a shrewd businesswoman. So when I gave him my property, I gave him every other lot. Well, the railroad was built. Then it was like the gold rush, everybody coming into town. There was no place for them to stay. They were staying in tents and in floating hotels, and it was pretty rough and ready, and it was just like the gold rush. Everybody came down here to work on the railroad, to work on the hotel. But they did, and Miami became a city in July of 1896. And then, unfortunately, I only lived 2 years longer. I woke up one morning with a headache, and within a couple of days, I was gone, and not even 50 years old. So I was only in Miami 7 years, and I didn't get to see the great city that it became, but I'm so proud that I was here for the start of it. And sometimes on Halloween, I come back. Ooh, thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Julia.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Julia. We really appreciate it a lot. That really added a wonderful touch. And of course, she's the most famous burial in the city cemetery. There's somewhat a little less than 9,000 people buried here. And the city was so blown away by the shock of her death, and so indebted to her that within a year of her death, they awarded this circle here for members of her family. And so her son and her daughter lived in the Bahamas almost all of her adult life, is buried here. Her son Harry's buried here, described by a granddaughter as being grouchy. He's buried here, and other members of the family. So we're just so honored to have you come back from the dead at Halloween time. It's more than an apparition. It is the real Julia Tuttle. And we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll see you next year back here if you feel up to it, if you want to join us again.
Well, thank you.